Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining Lattice today for our live panel discussion. I'm Mamta Gupta, Senior Director of Security, Data Center, and Telecommunications Segment Marketing at Lattice, and I'm excited to kick it off for our panel discussion today. Today, we are going to discuss the future of digital security in quantum era and the crucial role that FPGAs play in that area. And I'm joined today by Eric Sivertson, VP of Security at Lattice Team, and Bob O'Donnell from Tech Analysis Research. Eric and Bob, welcome. I'll hand it over to Bob to start the introduction, and then we will dive right in.
Great. Thanks, Mamta. So again, Bob O'Donnell, I'm the president of Technalysis Research. I've been a tech industry analyst for 25 years, looking at major trends in semiconductors and devices and advanced technologies like AI and quantum computing, and super happy to be here to chat about this with you today.
Eric?
Yeah, hi. My name's Eric Sivertson. I'm the vice president of the security business here at Lattice. And hate to say it, but I have 35 plus years in security, both at the U.S. government, intelligence community level, as well as commercial here in the Bay Area. And very much looking forward to this discussion.
We are very excited to have you both. So let's dive in. Um, let's begin by setting the stage. Quantum computing is no longer theoretical. Just like 2 years ago, people were talking about, my grandkids will see quantum computing. That's not so anymore. It has changed so much. The perceptions have changed so much. It is evolving fast, and it could have major security consequences. So that's where we are having this panel, just to bring this to the forefront and this topic, and how quantum computing poses a significant threat to current cryptographic systems, necessitating that we develop and adopt post-quantum cryptography, or PQC for short. So we will be using that interchangeably in this LinkedIn Live, and to ensure data security in the future. So Bob, what are the most recent advancements you have seen related to quantum computing, and why are they significant?
Well, we've seen a number of big developments over the last couple of months, as you pointed out, Mont. I mean, first of all, just physically, we've seen companies like Microsoft introduce a new quantum chip. Google's got new advancements in quantum. IBM has done a lot of work. I've actually been in the lab where IBM has some of their quantum computing systems, and we've seen the photos of the big chandeliers and all this amazing stuff, and it looks, like things are progressing. And then actually, technically, we're seeing things like things that matter to make it work: more stable qubits, better error correction. These are the big, some of the big technologies that are driving advancements in quantum and making it feel like it's getting closer, as you said, Mamta.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. So Eric, what do you see in this area?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bob nailed a lot of it. There's a lot of large infrastructure, and this is very important, infrastructure players that recognize the risk that these algorithms of public key cryptography we've relied upon are going to get broken with quantum computers. And so there's some of the earliest adopters and earliest pioneers in this space because they hold all our data. And Mamta, you've said this many times before: steal now, decrypt later. That's a real threat. And for anyone in infrastructure, if you're the backbone of all this data that AI relies upon, that we all rely upon, and you think that it's protected, what's going to happen when quantum computers really do get to that effective qubit level to break RSA and elliptic curve public key cryptography? All that data will then be exposed. So things like your health records, your social security number, nation state secrets about trade deals and who knows what, all of that will still be very viable in the next 10, 15 years when these machines will come online and break that cryptography. So people need to act now to start to deal with that problem. So that's what I'm seeing, Malta.
Yes, absolutely. So the threat of quantum computers is real. And from my experience in this arena, I'll just extend the thread that Bob was saying, that these computers are not research curiosity anymore. They are seeing serious efforts from all nations, China, US, Europe. They're all building scalable quantum systems. And then because these computers, and we'll get into it, that how these computers threaten our current cryptography, but there is a threat. And hence the cyber defense point comes up that, look, this is the new frontier of defense. And this is creating urgency definitely for steal now, decrypt later. You really don't have to even wait for a quantum computer to do damage. You can steal the data today and wait for a viable quantum computer to come along and then break the cryptography and steal the data. So that theft or that threat is happening today. So, the threat is not years away, and we have to plan for it right now. So, Bob, what's your take on this?
Well, no, it's a good point, Mom. I mean, the thing is we have to balance how we're talking about quantum, I think, because, I was talking about some of the advancements we've seen and you were talking about them, and they are actually, really happening. But, mainstream quantum computing is still, I think, a ways off. And so I think there's a lot of confusion out there right now about what's really happening in quantum. Yes, we're seeing some of these physical advancements and some of these breakthroughs in terms of the technology and error correction and more stable qubits and larger numbers of qubits. NVIDIA recently had a really interesting discussion around quantum computing at their GTC event. And, and just to hear all these little startups talking about all the different approaches they're taking, it was fascinating to get a sense of all the developments that are happening. Again, some of the more mainstream stuff that I think some people are hoping for probably still is a little ways out. But what's clear is progress is being made. And exactly to your point, I think, some of the first areas that people are talking about doing, they're talking about drug discovery and materials discovery, but they're also talking about, decryption types of things and security related things. And so there's a very real sense that even if some of the mainstream quantum computing developments still are a few years off, there could be some applications that happen much sooner. And, that's where I think this problem around quantum cryptography becomes an issue because, like you said, first of all, obviously people are stealing data now, right? So that's already happening. And then there's just the question of when will they be able to tap into it, use these quantum computing resources to figure out how to break these keys and then get access to that data. And so even though some of this is experimental and sort of lab-based, some of the first applications to prove the value and the capability of quantum could very well be in this cryptography area, which is why you guys obviously see this as a hot topic. And I think it really is, and something that companies have to be very serious about.
Absolutely. And let me give our viewers a little bit of insight into these post-quantum crypto vulnerabilities. So PQC is all about developing cryptographic algorithms that will withstand the attack from a quantum computer. And quantum computers can do certain kind of math, which is used in our traditional cryptography like ECC and RSA, much more efficiently. I'm talking million times efficiently or more than our current, classical computers. And hence what we see is that there are two algorithms that our viewers might have heard about: the Shor's algorithm, and the Grover's algorithm. So the Shor's algorithm literally renders RSA and ECC completely broken, not weakened, but broken on quantum computers. You run Shor's algorithm on quantum computers on a substantially, as they call it, cryptographically relevant quantum computer with enough stable qubits, and you break RSA and ECC like bullet to a paper. So that gets completely broken, and then Grover's algorithm will actually reduce even the symmetric cryptography and the hash to a square root of its value, and that is a significant reduction. So everybody has to now go to AES 256 kind of, or 256-bit cryptography. So the post-quantum era is requiring that we move to certain new algorithms like the crystals. They're called crystals Kyber or crystals dilithium, and the official name is MLDSA, MLChem, or there are hash-based LMS or XMSS. So that transition has to happen and it will take time. The last time we incorporated security algorithms in our day-to-day life was when internet was putting that little lock icon on that HTTP. That took 10 years, nearly 10 years, for the whole world to get onto that. So for the whole world to get onto this is going to take similar or more because now the data trove is much, much bigger than what it was before. So, Eric, you have been doing the rounds of conferences very recently. Provide us your industry insight, on this shift that is happening or has to happen.
Yeah. So, all of what you said, Mamta, is spot on. And I think, one particular industry organization called the Trusted Computing Group, or TCG, they just celebrated their 25th anniversary in fall of last year. And Lattice is a member. I'm the representative there. So we've had the TPM, Trusted Platform Module, which was done by them for well over 20 years now. And the backbone of that device is the old public key cryptography, elliptic curve, or RSA. And there are about 4 billion of those out there. Microsoft Windows requires, Windows 11 requires that you have a TPM, but almost all of those TPMs do not have the capability or the horsepower to run these new algorithms. And the standard doesn't even have that as part of it right now. It still has elliptic curve and RSA as part of TPM 2.0. So, that's a foundation that so many people rely upon that now with post-quantum computing coming online, all of those devices are, in many cases, not all, but the majority will be rendered obsolete. And that's going to be a real disruption for a lot of people. So I think that's a big point. The other point, and I think we talked about this the other day, Bob, it's kind of funny, but the industrial world, which has devices that will live for 15 or 20 years in the market, have been slower on the uptake of the relevance of post-quantum, whereas the infrastructure guys, the hyperscalers, the servers, the communication backbone, and they update their equipment almost every 2 or 3 years, they're adopting at a pretty fast rate. So I think there's a lot of pain coming to some of these industries as governments require not only the infrastructure, but all the equipment downstream that is going to be relied upon to be able to be updated and work properly with the new post-quantum algorithms. Yet these guys haven't really started to put that into their products. So I think we're going to see a lot of chaos and a lot of churn over the next 5 years. And your point again, Mamta, about it took 10 years to get your little lock on the browser. Well, imagine how much time it really is going to take now to have this propagate, not only in the infrastructure side, but down into factories and automobiles and things like that. So I think we're going to see a lot of churn. And also, I think these algorithms, and maybe you're going to speak to this in a little bit, might, they're brand new. They might experience some weaknesses or issues that are found, and we have to do some updates as well on those algorithms.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead,
Bob, go ahead.
No,
No,
well, I was
no,
just going to say that, the to Eric's point, I mean, this is a classic issue with a lot of, especially the OT world, right? Where they have these devices and like you said, they're there for 15 years and yet they're not addressing these things. But at the same time, we've already seen stories, about infrastructure being, attacked here in the US, right? And so there's things that are happening in terms of people breaking in to some of these systems. And again, they could be that they're breaking in, they're stealing the data that's encrypted, so they can't necessarily do anything with it just yet. But boy, once this starts to happen, then you really start to get into some big concerns.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the updates, if I can, just to build on what you're saying there, Bob, the part where these industrial guys and the auto guys need to really pay attention, they are getting new, like in Europe, there's a Cyber Resiliency Act, if there's a problem found, they have to do an update. Well, a lot of those updates rely on public cryptography. Well, now if quantum computers come on a little faster, those digital signature algorithms used to do the initiation of the update of all these automobiles and devices are going to have to run post-quantum if they want to be compliant. So it's, like I said, I think it's going to be a big topic.
So I am smiling because I love the passion. I love how, you are tapping into the concerns and the anxiety that is actually pervading certain industries. And certain industries like comms and compute have woken up to it, and they are actually embracing. And then, sometimes when we see people rushing towards a cliff edge and not doing anything about it, or not slowing down, or not taking a turn, that's the anxiety I see in both of you, that, oh my goodness, the OT world is not really paying attention to it, and that is a real problem. Now we will have a whole bunch of devices that will need field upgrades, because the government mandates are coming on that by 2030, any device that is deployed in, let's say, US national security systems, if it is not post quantum enabled, it has to be retrofitted. It has to be field upgraded. So it is not an advisory, it is a mandate. Now, this is where I would bring in the concept of crypto agility, because you have to be able to upgrade. Now, the need is starkly clear that you need to upgrade these devices in the field. And this is where at Lattice, we have done this innovation where you can securely field upgrade your devices with post-quantum algorithms, or if they evolve. Lattice, Eric brought up this point that the algorithms are new, they're not battle tested, and they could evolve, and you could have an MLDSA too, because people will learn more and more about them as they use. Then what do? You have to avoid a lock-in at this time, because the things are new and changing. So again, at Lattice, we have implemented LMS, XMSS, and MLDSA-based quantum post-quantum signatures, and we have upgraded our secure boot flows. But all of these are field upgradable if the need arises tomorrow. So this gives you a pathway to be, to adopt this, to be compliant to the mandate that is coming down, but also have a path for evolving as the standards evolve.
So, Mamta, may I ask you a question then? So, I mean, the obvious question is, well, what do companies do? How do they solve this issue? How are they going to address this? I mean, you talked a little bit about this, secure boot, but what exactly are the Lattice FPGAs able to do to help address this issue?
So we are addressing this in a couple of ways. First, of course, we are an FPGA, we are reprogrammable. So as at the point of adoption, you can pick and choose, you can see which algorithm fits you the best, because these algorithms have different resource needs than what our classical had. And you can first do a very flexible choice. You can test drive it and all that. And then as you adopt these algorithms, and as I said prior, because of our crypto agility innovation, which is our patent pending innovation, it's not just reprogrammability. We do it in a very secure fashion that in field we can upgrade the new device and the FPGA will boot up with the new algorithm. We can upgrade these devices with new algorithms, and then the FPGA will boot up with the new algorithm. So that gives our customers a peace of mind. Then the other vector is we are supporting hybrid cryptography. So hybrid cryptography means that we have classical algorithms available to you, all of them, ECC, RSA, to sign your bit stream or data. And we also have PQC algorithms that you can use simultaneously to sign. We have key infrastructure that you could divvy it up, that I will have some keys classical and I'll have some keys post-quantum. and you could manage them. There's a key hierarchy, you could, roll them. So we are giving a very flexible and robust migration path for confident, adoption of these new standards. Our customers don't have to fear lock-in. They don't have to fear evolution. They just get on and implement and be assured that if things change, they can confidently update their system. This is how FPGAs come in and help when such a churn is ongoing. I'll also give it to Eric. Eric, from the other mandates that you are seeing, like CRA and all, how do you see FPGAs playing a role there?
Yeah, so I think it was a good question from Bob to you, and building on all that. FPGAs do very well in the chaos like what we're about to experience, when there's standards that are evolving or possibly changing, and when there's a lot of heavy math or numeric processing that might not fit to an instruction set in a microcontroller. The FPGA is fully programmable hardware. And so I think that what you're going to see is a combination of two things hitting into the world right now. As you said, Mamta, CRA, which is the Cyber Resilience Act, requires cyber resiliency. And that's a new concept where not only do systems need to boot properly, but they need to be constantly vigilant and looking for an attack and able to self-recover from that attack. And then when you take the post-quantum and add to it, which is now numerically intensive for these new algorithms, and those algorithms might change, an FPGA becomes a very valuable tool for your development, because we can run multiple channels in parallel to watch things that could be attacking us. And as these algorithms might change, especially based on what Lattice has done with its crypto agility, we can easily add in new algorithms or changes to the algorithm and not be afraid of performance limitations. So I think for engineers and system designers, they're about to walk into both of these kind of big trends, the cyber resilience growth and the PQC, and the fact that they have to be compliant and things are moving around. The FPGA becomes a really nice tool. You can deploy something. If it changes, now you can update it in the field, still be compliant, and still have plenty of performance capability to do the demands of the system. So I think that's where the value of an FPGA will kick in.
So if I could jump in though, I'm curious, because just to play devil's advocate, I'm thinking, wow, you guys have these little low power FPGAs. Do they really have the horsepower to run these post quantum algorithms? And oh, by the way, if I am a developer, how hard is it for me? Have you already done the work for me so I can simply load these things on? Or how much work is involved, if I want to add these algorithms into my device or into my designs?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and it comes in two things. We have the fabric, right, which is where you typically do your programmable hardware design. But in all of our root of trust products, we have a foundational silicon-based cryptographic engine that has a lot of the key primitives that are available. Like Mamta was talking about, the hash-based functions for XMSS and LMS. We have a built-in SHA engine that's there already working in silicon that we can now leverage from the fabric. So even though the part might be small fabric-wise, it's very powerful because of the cryptographic primitives we've built into the crypto engine.
Got it. And again, like, is it hard for a developer to integrate these algorithms? You mentioned you guys have done the work. So have you already created iterations of these algorithms that run on some of your Lattice FPGAs?
Okay. Yes, absolutely. So Lattice is integrating these algorithms, at the foundational level in our root of trust devices. So they become part of the device DNA, almost like, or the device personality, if you were to say. So for our users, it is no different. So initially they could bring up ECC or RSA. Now they could bring up MLTSA, LMS, XMSS. They're all available for them to sign or use for key establishment, the MLChem. It's their choice. So there is, in our tools, they have choice. Which algorithm would you like to sign with? And it's as simple as choosing an algorithm. There is no extra step. We have upgraded the resources so that the bigger key lengths can be stored in full. That is, the highest security thing, not just hashes. If you want, you can store hashes too, which is simpler, smaller, and less resource intensive. But we have full resources available to store complete keys for these, algorithms which have bigger keys. So yes, absolutely seamless integration. We will have a line of products that will be dedicated to these post-quantum algorithms, and users would be able to pick and choose very clearly, and then they will have full CNSA 2.0 compliant suite of algorithms that are NIST approved, not one or two, all of them available to them to use.
And I think that's important to point out as well, because I mean, my presumption is going to be most people who are designing these may not be quantum encryption experts, right? They're not going to necessarily know how these algorithms work or what they need to tweak or do. So if you guys have done the hard work, that's obviously going to make their life a lot easier if they can simply insert them based on knowing which one. They have to at least know which one to pick, obviously. But, based other
Yeah,
than that, it seems like it's straightforward.
yeah, exactly. And then just a segue into, which ones to pick. This whole industry, or this whole post-quantum wave, is actually being driven by a U.S. government mandate. And U.S. is is the market for data center and telecommunication. It is one of the biggest spenders, and US government has brought out a mandate called CNSA 2.0. It is published by the NSA, and it mandates that national security systems must transition to post-quantum algorithms by January 1, 2027. So which is less than 2 years away. And all new acquisitions in the national security systems will be required to be CNSA 2.0 compliant. Otherwise, and there are no exceptions there. And for both digital signatures and key establishment, that means where you were using ECC RSA to sign, or you were using ECDH to do key establishment, you have to move on. Those are gone, those are decommissioned as of January 1, 2027. And you have to use either LMS, XMSS, MLDSA to sign, and MLChem to do the key establishment. So this all is enshrined in a document or a release, and multiple, the CNN SSP 15 and all these are all the auxiliary documents that were released by a US government. And it's a mandate, it's not an advisory, it's a directive. So that is actually creating now almost a scramble in in our customers, or in the ecosystem, where systems are deployed in US infrastructure. So that's why you see data center and telecommunication being at the forefront of adopting PQC protections, because they deploy their systems into US government, and they have this very tight runway now to accomplish this.
Well, and it's interesting because I'm not sure that, I mean, obviously people who are specifically dedicated in this industry probably know about this, but it's certainly not widely known that some of these standards are coming into to requirement phase, like you said, mandate phase, in a year and a half. I mean, that's like nothing, when it comes to the development here.
So at this point, we say, if you haven't started already, you're already late. But still, there is, that's where FPGAs come to rescue, because there is a relatively short design cycle, and you can retrofit your systems, your design, and still meet the mandate. So, and we know that world over, there are similar mandates being considered, and we will see them showing up, fairly soon from other nation states and other organizations as well. But talking of mandates, right? Okay, this is all about PQC, so CNSA 2.0 is very relevant. But there's another mandate, and this is just for public service announcement kind of thing that people don't keep in mind, which is the CRA. So, Eric, I would like to bring you back in so that you can inform people that there is another deadline looming to comply, especially for the European market, the CRA deadline.
Yeah, so CRA was adopted last year, and it gave 2 years. So effectively, 2028 time period, the fines will start to kick in. And what does that mean? That means if you're building a product in Europe that is going to be used by a consumer, a lot of the IoT products fall into this camp. A lot of the industrial ITOT thing we talked about is going to fall into this. What it means is you have to be able for 5 years, or if the product life cycle is shorter, track all the vulnerabilities on that product. So if there's a vulnerability that pops up, you need to, within 24 hours, notify your customers of it, and then you need to have updates available to go and fix that. And so and if you don't do those things and you don't plan for that and don't follow the CRA guidance, then if you're selling into the European market, by the way, that'll come with the CE. Part of the CE mark will now, by 2028, include all these CRA requirements. If you're not doing that, you'll be subject to lots of fines and penalties, and it could be very expensive for you to basically do business in Europe. I think some of the principles that they're building from that, like having a software bill of materials, will fall out of this too. So you know all of the software components that are running on your system as well, because that's where a lot of these vulnerabilities pop up. That's going to spread to the rest of the world because they're kind of pioneering this, I think, actually more than the US is at the moment. But the kicker, and this is where it ties back to PQC, are these updates, because no one is going to make you bring your product to the store. You're not going to take your product in Europe to the equivalent of Best Buy and say, oh, give me my new update. You're going to do it over the air, right? So you're going to use the internet. And now in the next, 5 to 8 years, we're going to see all these PQC algorithms become the critical backbone of doing a handshake to do a secure update. So indirectly, PQC with CRA is going to hit a lot of people. And this is why I brought up the concern that some of the IoT players and some of the industrial guys, my joke I made at Embedded World this year was the Embedded World before, no one knew what PQC was. Now they can spell it at least, but it's still a long way until it gets into the products. But I think CRA will be a forcing function on some of that because of this update mechanism.
Yeah. And I'll stay with you, Eric. What do you recommend? So, now that we have established the urgency of two major, security mandates hitting us in two major markets of the world, CNSA 2.0 in US and CRA, the Cyber Resiliency Act in Europe, what would you recommend engineers to do to prepare their systems for quantum era security and build in the cyber resiliency readiness with it?
Yeah, I think first there's a mindset change that has to occur. For a long time, people thought security meant I securely boot and I'm done. And that's the end of the story. That's really the first step in the process. And so you have to have a good root of trust to do that. And preferably a root of trust that can be dynamic, where like a TPM is not really dynamic. It's good for booting and holding credentials, but you can't use a TPM to do real-time monitoring for attacks, like what you need for cyber resilience. So I recommend that engineers look at their root of trust very carefully. Does it, number one, have all the capability to do a good secure boot? Because even some of the devices out there today don't do that well. Does it now have all the right approved algorithms to be post-quantum compliant? Again, many of those TPMs are not going to be there. And then can it dynamically, that means at a high rate of speed, be monitoring things for bad activity in a secure fashion? And so if I was designing systems today, those are some of the key topics I want to look at very carefully. And on the algorithms, I'd want approved algorithms. I don't want, Joe Schmo's custom version of this. Or if I'm taking open code, how well has it been vetted? So you also want, in the US, we have what's called the Cryptographic Algorithm Verification Program out of NIST, which shows that the actual algorithm is implemented properly. So you want to look at that as well. So those are some of the things that I would recommend to both engineers and system designers.
And Bob, to you,
Well, look, I
your
mean,
recommendation.
it's clear that you guys are building some solutions that I think a lot of people don't really appreciate what they're capable of doing, and you've done a lot of the hard work behind the scenes to make it as simple as possible to integrate. And so to me, this is just yet another one of those kind of unsung hero cases of a technology, that being these FPGAs and the cryptographic engine that you've built that are really something that's incredibly important, and especially with these mandates coming up. So it seems clear that you've just need to kind of really look at this seriously, figure out how you're going to make this work, and take advantage of the tools that are out there in order to build products that people are going to be able to use and want to use. And oh, by the way, that will keep your company from avoiding any kinds of fines and other issues that are likely to occur if you don't meet those mandates.
And even worse than a fine would be the poster child of what not to do that everybody reads about.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm not touching, XYZ's product because of what I just read in the newspaper about how horrible the attack was on them, right?
Yeah. And we saw a recent thing about it when our PCs and laptops went blue suddenly all over the world. So absolutely, and then, so just to give more insight to our viewers, one thing to keep in mind is that these algorithms are hefty. The new algorithms that are coming in are hefty. There is a shift in key size. There is a shift in performance characteristics. So, algorithms like Kyber or MLChem have larger keys, and they have different computation models. So your system will have to accommodate those changes. So audit your system, look at the standard, and especially, if you have a constrained environment, there might be some incompatibility, and that you may have to retrofit for, or you may have to look for solutions. And this is where, brute force implementation may not work, and you might be looking for hardware acceleration. So just, a software, grinding or through this big algorithm may not work. So FPGAs allow PQC to run very efficiently, and you really don't have to redesign your platform. And then if you're really, really resource constrained, CNSA 2.0 and NIST have made, conscious effort to allow for algorithms that are lightweight, like LMS and XMSS signature schemes can be efficiently implemented even in low resource systems. So audit your system, look at the resources, look at the requirements, and then decide, how much retrofitting you would have to do on that. That could hit you with a surprise when you actually start investing in these algorithms and you realize that the system resources are holding you back. So that I would say that get on it right now, please.
Yeah, I think also, just to build on that, Mamta, it's kind of in the brownfield world where there's a lot of existing microcontroller code and systems. They might, a very simple, 2-core 32-bit microcontroller, but it can have a ton of developed software. But now, how does it get post-quantum or cyber resilience added to that system? You can put a companion FPGA to solve it and not have to touch much of that software or change out that legacy product. So that's another build on what you were saying.
Yeah. And with that lively discussion, we are coming to the end of our show, but I would do a roundtable of, what would be one security thought that our audience should walk away from today? Bob, why don't you go first, and then Eric, you take it.
Well, I think you made a really good point, Mamta, around this notion of crypto agility, because clearly, we're entering an era where there are going to be all these new algorithms. And as you guys pointed out, some of them, may end up having a version 2 or a version 3. And so it's that ability to switch into these new types of algorithms and have that flexibility, I think, is going to be really critical. So crypto agility, I like that phrase, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Eric?
Yeah, I'm going to go on the cyber resilience path. That's, if there's one thing I want to leave the audience with, and that is that the world is changing. I mean, we see that now, not to get real political, it's always dangerous, but with the tariff situation in the world the way it is today, there's a lot of change coming. And I think the old world was one of static security, where systems boot up, and once they're running, everyone was like head in the sand, ostrich, everything's okay, we booted up securely. This new world is constant vigilance. We have to be watching for attacks in real time, and we have to take evasive action at the hardware level against those attacks. So I think we're moving into not only a post-quantum era, but a cyber resilient era.
Okay, excellent. And I'll leave our audience with a thought about hybrid cryptography. So combining classical algorithms like ECC RSA with post-quantum crypto algorithms like LMS, XMSS, MLDSA, or CHEM to protect against both current and future threats. So adopt hybrid cryptography. It will provide you with a flexible migration path to a quantum safe security for all your critical data. So this would be my thought to leave with our audience. And with that, I would bring this lively panel session to a close. Thank you for sharing your insights, Bob, Eric. And as the low power programmable leader, it's great to hear that our low power FPGAs play a crucial role in enhancing cyber resilience and crypto agility by providing reconfigurable hardware that can quickly adapt to new security threats and cryptographic algorithms. If you would like to learn more about Lattice's security products and solutions, please visit our website shown on the screen. And last but not the least, stay up to date with our latest news. Follow us on social media, Lattice on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, or YouTube. And thank you, and see you next time.